You go.
No, I know. It's you first.
Okay. I am Julia Cummings.
I'm Steve Cummings, and
And
we're the hosts of the Parent Pivot Podcast.
Okay, do that again. One of you said we're, and one of you said we are. So decide which one you want. Mom,
Okay.
go again.
I'm Julia Cummings.
And I'm Steve Cummings.
And
we are the hosts of the Parent
We are the parents of the Parent Pit. That's what I was going to say. I'm Julia Cummings.
And I'm Steve Cummings. And we are the hosts of the Parent Pivot Podcast.
Pivot! 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 Pivot!
Honey, why don't you tell us about our podcast?
Our podcast, we have 4 adult married children, and as they started their lives together, we looked out there to see what kind of content's out there. There's stuff for toddlers and teenagers, whatever, and when we looked through all of it, there was nothing for parents of adult children. So we thought, let's step into this space. I mean, we've got some experience doing this, although we use our podcast to share some raw and vulnerable moments. We literally turn the mics on and we go.
Exactly. And it was some content out there.
There was some content out there by my friend Jim Burns, who wrote the book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children, Keep Your Mouth Shut, and The Welcome Mat Out. And we interviewed Jim on one of our podcasts, and that's one of our highlights of the podcast. But we have so many different topics. What are some of them?
We do. And I couldn't tell you because we've got like 75 out there.
We got 75 out there. Now, we have not been able to get videos of all 75, but...
No. So this is new.
This is new for us.
This is our first time on YouTube.
Yes.
That's the right thing.
That is the right thing. We're boomers, and so we had to hire a millennial, a very expert millennial called our daughter, who's in the acting business, and she is taking us to the next level. So
yes,
that's pretty cool.
She's behind the camera.
She's behind the camera.
What's
directing
up?
So this is our introduction to YouTube, and from here on out, we will be putting our podcast on YouTube
That means I
as
have to brush my teeth.
Yes, and we're going to have to be more camera ready because there are plenty of times that we've done our podcast maybe at like 10 o'clock at night when we're ready for bed.
But we have our clothes on. We don't, not in our bathrobes.
Right.
No.
But maybe sometime we'll do it in our bathroom.
And we do interviews with other people that aren't in the room. We've done interviews with great people that some of the experiences we've not been through, so we want their input.
Yeah. So
we have quite a number of guests that we've already done them with. We have a few more lined up. Yeah. That we're...
No, but we're excited about.
You will know who these people are, so it'll be kind of fun. But we enjoy this. We come out in a very raw moment. In fact, I remember one episode where you kind of turned the tables on me real quickly and said, "I want you to tell this story." Yeah. And I knew exactly where you were going, and it became very raw and vulnerable, and I shed some tears over that. And then it was also very poignant because I didn't hear. I heard something new that I hadn't heard before. And that's some interviews. But, we talk about Christmas and holiday traditions. What does that look like? We talk about being an empty nester. It's a tough season. What does that look like? We talk about communicating boundaries with adult kids, enforcing boundaries, let them vent, my pig, not my farm. Just a whole host of things. As you can see, we're kind of a novice at this whole thing, and we're doing a bit of rambling, but we do just really want you to get to know us some. So, about me, I have my master's in marriage and family therapy. I have my own practice. And part of the reason why we started this was I kept having a lot of conversations with other parents of adult children who were really struggling with this period of their life and not knowing what to do. And so that became kind of a passion, I guess, a little bit of mine, where I said to Steve a year before we started this, maybe even before a year, I said, I really feel like God's telling me to start this podcast and that this is something we're supposed to do. And it took us so long to that was
really
my fault because I spent 16 years in the radio business. I'm going, I don't need one more thing to do. So after about a year, I'm like, okay, let's go for it.
So our method of doing this is literally we turn the mic on, now the camera too, and just start going. We are not scripted. I remember one time I was having a really tough day and I had been crying and I said, we need to turn the mics on right now, and had a conversation about what I was going through. So this is very real and raw to us. We are going through
the other thing we did was we were bold enough to interview our 4 adult children.
Yes.
And those were some really raw and vulnerable moments. In fact, the lady behind the screen actually interviewed us one time, and we had no idea what the topic was. We call it the Adult Musings of an Adult Child. Musings of an Adult Child. So if you listen to that podcast, we had no idea going into that one. Here's our daughter interviewing us, and people are like going, "That was awesome," because they're like listening in on a very normal, authentic, and vulnerable interview and things. And we've also interviewed all 3 boys and a couple of our in-law kids. We have another 2 more to go to keep up with that. But we're getting their input on all that, and that's amazing. For what I do during the day, I work for a nonprofit organization called City to City, and I am a director of partner engagement. And I travel over the Southeast raising money for City to City, founded by Tim Keller. And that's what I do during the daytime. But also, I have a long history of just wanting to shepherd men's hearts. I also have my own 501c3 nonprofit called bringingkingdom.org. And I just help men get into their hearts and live out of their identity as a beloved son, and very much enjoy doing that. And we're both board certified pastoral counselors in the state of Georgia, which means, in fact, you've even picked up a couple clients from the podcast.
Several.
Yeah, so Julia can actually do some counseling if you're interested in doing that. And so you can contact us at parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com, and you can ask, "Hey, Julia, I could stand using some help." And it's been with their adult kids. We've had quite a few that are on a regular basis, and that's awesome.
Let me just say one more thing. One of the things that we made, we have to kind of discuss this a little further, but my youngest son Jackson had suggested that we start including some things that are more geared toward the adult child.
Hearing their viewpoint.
And hearing their viewpoint. And so we have to kind of work that out and figure out how we would do that and who we would do that with, and even our thoughts, because there's a part of me that says I don't really remember what it was like to be an adult child. At the same time, I'm 62 in a few weeks, and I still feel like the adult child sometimes. My mom is 94, and so there is the reality of that as well.
And please know too, we don't use names and we don't use specifics. We just say, hey, if you've got a situation that has happened and you give us permission to talk about it, we're not going to use your name. We're not going to use exactly what happened, so you're not going to be outed in any way. But it helps us put ourselves in the shoes. In fact, we had a loyal listener talk to us about something going on in their home, and we came on air and. We're going to come on air now pretty soon. We will come on air. We came on sound before, but when we talked about it, you went down one road, and I went down the other, and at the end of it, we said, you know what, here are 2 perspectives for you and your husband, you and your wife, to talk about, and you guys need to pray and come together. We're not experts. We're not we don't have doctorates. We do have masters of divinity on my side.
But even if you did, is anybody a real expert in your situation? And that's why we do this. I'm not claiming to be the expert because we are living this in real time. So your situation is your situation. Yes. We can speak into it, but ultimately it's you that will carry out what needs to be done.
We can look at it better because we're not involved in it emotionally. We can sit up above it and see the dynamics and speak to that, and then it's up to you to decide how you want to enter into that. We are not experts on that. And anyway, that's good biblical wisdom. We do come from a Christian worldview, so everything we talk about is going to come from that. We don't quote scripture on the podcast at all, or on the YouTube telecast. Is that what we call it?
We may have quoted scripture before, but
very rarely.
The principles remain the same whether you are a Christian or a non-Christian or whatever your faith is. The principles remain the same.
Right.
But like you said, we are coming from a Christian worldview.
And a lot of it really is coming from a heart of humility. It's like, you know what? We don't always get it right. We share our mistakes all the time. And they can be quite embarrassing, but, we learn from them. And so we have all these mistakes we want to share with you. So learn from our mistakes.
Yeah. That being said, we would love to hear from you.
Yes.
We would love to hear your issues, what you're going through. So to end this Virgin podcast,
Virgin telecast,
YouTube. Oh my God.
We're boomers. Please
forgive us. Okay, my daughter is covering her face.
She's embarrassed.
Right now.
She's embarrassed right now.
Okay, let's not call it a virgin. Let's just say our
initial.
New initial YouTube, whatever. you what to call it.
Hey, I'm gonna see if she can do this, sweetheart. How do they contact us?
Oh,
come on, you
no,
can do
that's your job.
No, sweetheart, we've done it 75 times.
It doesn't matter.
It's a Gmail address. What's this called?
The parent is the in it?
No.
Parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com.
I knew you could do it. I got faith in you.
So, close it up for us, hon.
Hey, we're just doing this for ministry. So listen or watch either one for every week, and we'll bring you some new content. And we are not trying to become world renowned, but we do have an engagement coming up in February.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that more as it comes. Yeah. So thanks for joining us on the first edition of the YouTube version of the Parent Pivot Podcast.
Bye.
Pivot!